First up today, the remarkable journey of cattle they call Big Reds. It all started in the 13th century with a Hungarian-born Roman Catholic saint called St Gertrude. 600 years later, Spanish monks gave her name to a land grant near Corpus Christi in southwest Texas. And in turn, ranchers used it to describe a tropically adapted breed of cattle the world beef industry now knows as Santa Gertrudis. Like the Queen, the breed in Australia this year is celebrating its Golden Jubilee, a chance to reflect on where it's heading and where it's been.
A rancher has one primary task: producing beef. To do so at a profit, he must take in more money than he spends, plus a reasonable return on his long hours. Santa Gertrudis breeds profits. At the turn of the century, only the hardy longhorns successfully survived in hot, arid South Texas. The meat produced by these animals was about as tough as their hardiness. The King Ranch introduced British breeds to improve meat quality, but the animals whose origin was in cooler climates quickly degenerated in the heat and sparse grazing conditions. Only the longhorns held their own. The King Ranch then set out deliberately to create a new breed, which would combine the desirable characteristics of beefy British breeds and Indian cattle, which had been introduced for their heat and pest resistance. In 1940, the United States Department of Agriculture gave official recognition to the Santa Gertrudis breed, created by Robert J. Clayburgh Jr., president of the King Ranch, and developed on the ranch. It is the first breed developed in this country or the Western Hemisphere. On the ranch today, Bob and Dick Clayburgh Jr. continue to follow these high standards, harshly culling from the breeding herd any animal not measuring up to size and productivity.
The Santa Gertrudis
This herd of young cows with their first calves here being
evolved
weaning illustrates the profitable
fit
results of
the
such a
very
breeding program.
harsh
At an
environments
average weaning age of 9
of
months,
South
the
Texas.
heifer calves weighed 600.
And after a while, people took them to different places, and my father found out that they could survive a great many harsh environments.
This breed has the ability to convert rich, lush grass into quality beef, or survive on prickly pear in parched areas where the ability to rough it and cover long distances for food and water is essential. Yet, Santa Gertrudis will put on a long hair coat and stand up to the lowest temperatures winter can offer. Or move into hot, humid climates and, regardless of insects, pests, and parasites, reach market weight on native grass alone in a remarkably short time.
They stood the cold, the heat, the wet, and the dry. I must say they don't like the wet much, but they stood all the rest of it very, very well. And they made themselves very much at home here in Australia.
This film of the 1974 floods at Brunette Downs on the Barkly Tablelands proves you can just about toss anything at them. And it was this true grit as much as anything else that impressed a consortium of Australian businessmen to take a punt on Santa Gertrudis.
We believed that Santa Gertrudis was the answer for our northern cattle development. And 50 odd years ago, I got an invitation to King Ranch and made friends with Bob Clayburgh. And we did a little partnership deal, shaking hands. He was to supply the cattle and send them to Australia, and I was to supply the land for them to stand on.
Which was a bit disappointing. It would have been nice to see him work. You started, we didn't start right on time, half past 6, did it?
We had a very, very hard time before we could get import licenses, because in those days the British breeds, Bos Taurus, didn't want to see Bos Indicus come to Australia.
They eventually took the matter right to the top, petitioning the then Customs Minister, Senator Neil Sullivan, to allow Santas in.
We were regarded as being, shall we say, renegades who are going to ruin a good, pure cattle industry of Australia, and nobody had any time for us at all.
Today, many of the men and women who initially backed the breed return to Milton Park in the New South Wales Southern Highlands, the one-time headquarters of King Ranch's Australian operations. And from that somewhat shaky start, Santas have become the fourth biggest beef cattle breed in the country.
Well, we are. The figures will indicate that Santa Gertrudis in 50 years have gone from a shipment of about 200 head from Texas to and grown to about 4 million. So we're up there and we're just pushing on, and we're very encouraged by the acceptance of the breed in the last decade or two.
Looking forward, looking back, I've come a long way down the track, got a long way left to go, making songs from what I know.
I remember as a schoolboy my father taking me to Risdon, outside Warwick, where the breed started, where the first cattle that were imported, they were taken to Risdon, and they had the first sales there of Santa Gertrudis and the quarter horses. And I have a very strong picture in my mind of those days that I went there for those sales, and the impact that's had on me. So it's wonderful to be part of the breed and to be part of the Australian cattle industry.
John Cox now runs one of the biggest beef businesses in the world, AMP's Stanbroke Pastoral Company, which covers some 12.5 million hectares on 28 northern cattle stations, which is home to 550,000 head of cattle, 20% of them Santa Gertrudis.
Stanbroke is proud to own some of those former King Ranch properties now, Lake Nash and Barkly and Elgin Downs in Queensland. So we have those big herds of Santa Gertrudis, the big reds, and it's wonderful to be able to talk about the Santa Gertrudis story and the big numbers around the world, because Australia is unique in having those big stations, big numbers, with good people to manage them.
Now, what are the traits you want this breed, to bring to your business, to the meat that you produce?
Well, more and more the customer, the consumer, is looking for food, health and safety, in addition to consistency of quality. So we're looking more and more at our carcass characteristics, and the Santa Gertrudis brings the ability to survive in harsh conditions in northern Queensland and the Northern Territory, together with a high quality carcass character.
This breed also proves its profit potential at slaughter. High dressing percentage and meaty, well-muscled carcasses with a maximum of lean, tender beef and a minimum of waste fat are characteristic of the breed. These Santa Gertrudis carcasses are typical of the fine quality produced. They're especially heavy in the round and loin, which means a high percentage of top-priced preferred cuts. And note the large, meaty ribeye. It's well marbled, yet has just enough outside fat. And not only did these cattle perform well for the producer and feeder, but they also proved an attraction for the market owner. The retailer is in business to sell lean, tender, juicy beef at the lowest possible price. That's what customers like. And they obviously like these outstanding Santa Gertrudis cuts.
There's a great deal of interest in what's happening with the breed in Australia. There are more numbers of Santa Gertrudis here, which is somewhat ironic perhaps, and talking to the Americans, they acknowledge that we have good quality Santa Gertrudis, and perhaps one day we might even be able to send some genetic material back to the home of the Santa Gertrudis.
From Coles to Newcastle?
Well, possibly, yes.
Milton Park is the headquarters of the King Ranch organisation in Australia and the source of breeding stock for all properties in the group. Now held every second year, the Milton Park sale is one of the highlights of the Santa Gertrudis calendar. 12 bulls are to be auctioned today, and pre-sale inspections are well attended.
It took a long time, and of course it took a lot of money, but once they started selling these cattle, and on an average they were weighing 50 pounds or even 100 pounds more than the British breeds, and they were being paid for so much a pound. So it didn't take them long to learn that their cattle had a great future.
46,000 against the good judge over on the right. 46, one more if you like. If not, I foul him over. You done one.
This bull made top price of $46,000. At the time, a world record.
Incidentally, the world record price for a Santa Gertrudis bull is now just under 100,000 Australian dollars, paid in South Africa for a bull bred at a stud in Queensland.
29,000. Hell of a figure. 29,000, here we go. I bid 29,000, I'm going to part and sell him. Last chance. Out he goes, 29,000. Want him. All done. 29,000 bought him. The Stanbroke Pastoral Company goes to Port Constantine. Thank you very much, Mr. John Cox. Great supporter of Santa Gertrudis cattle. Nice to have you here, sir. Thank you.
Bidding at the Jubilee sale didn't quite reach the dizzying heights of days gone by, but John Cox did make good his promise to send the Yanks back a sample of just how good Santas have gone down under.
Ladies and gentlemen, just as another announcer, the lot number 10 bull that we sold on account of Gyranda to Stanbroke Pastoral Company, the semen will be collected in that bull and will be sent to King Ranch in US of A and will go to Mrs. Groves. So there you are, we've got some semen and some genetics going back to the good old foundation country. Well done, thank you very much, John Cox.
Well, 50 years on, and there are a great many here who made their fortunes out of Santa Gertrudis cattle. They were cattlemen, and they saw the benefits, and they were open-minded.
Australian cattlemen quickly accepted Santa Gertrudis, and the breed won a place in the Royal Agricultural Shows throughout Australia. The Studmaster's shop windows. At the Royal Easter Show in Sydney, well-groomed and prepared Santa Gertrudis attracted a large crowd. The Sydney Show is one of the major cattle shows in Australia. It's here that the best of breed establish national significance, and cattlemen from all states come to watch the judging with interest.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please salute our feature breed cattle at the 2002 Sydney Royal Easter Show, the Santa Gertrudis.
It was perhaps appropriate then, given 2002 was also the Queen's Golden Jubilee, that Queenslanders were the big winners in Sydney. Indeed, a family that's been involved with the breed virtually since they stepped off the boat.
We rely on the show ring as our shop window to present our top cattle. To come to Sydney, it exposes us to a lot of new clients. We've got a lot of regular clients in Queensland, but to come down here and present in front of a lot of new people, it's like a big car showroom. We've got the right article in the right place, and when you win, it's just the cream on the cake.
Gyranda Pastoral Company's stud at Theodore in central Queensland produced both the Grand Champion Bull and Best Exhibit and the Grand Champion Female.
A lot of people have commented in the past about the worth of our female lines of cattle, and I've always said that most of our good female lines are sired by our own bulls, so there must be some good bulls in the background, and I guess this is one of them.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Cumberland Trophy being presented there by Mrs. Sue Walker on behalf of Sir James Walker and Sons of Longreach for the Grand Champion Bull.
The real test of these tropically adapted Texans came when they were progressively introduced across Australia's outback pastoral industry. And it's fair to say Santas have made quite an impression. It's the breed of choice for many of Australia's more significant beef producers, with some 4 million pure and crossbred cattle, or 16% of the national herd. And here in Central Australia, Santas account for 1 in 3 cattle. They seem right at home. We're on Delmore Downs, a couple of 100 kilometres northeast of Alice Springs, where the Holt family run about 8,000 Santas.
Lead away, boys, lead away.
What are the characteristics you look for in an animal that can produce quality meat out here in Central Australia?
Well, fertility first, always. It's number 1, 2, 3 and 4. But then the ability to do well and survive in this country. And then temperament, because that affects their eating ability very much, and it makes cattle easy to handle when they've got a good temperament. Every year when we get cattle in hand, we train the young ones so they'll be quiet and make them do better in the yards next time we bring them in. Where the heifers are going to be our main breeders, so we want them nice and quiet to handle. It cuts down your labour, it makes them grow faster, and I think they're more tender, they eat better. Then we select for athletic cattle that can handle this country, that can walk out a long way to feed in drought.
And where are they heading? What are your markets?
The feedlots are chasing them at the moment, We sometimes sell to the live shipping trade, the Middle East, and to Egypt. We sell to the Philippines and Indonesia, but at the moment the feedlots are paying more money, so we always sell to the market that pays the best.
Well, it's a rare alignment of the planets that provides both good seasons and good prices. Just how good has it been out here?
The last 12 months have been really good. It's the best I've ever had here. We had over 500 mils of rain last year, and the prices were very good. We were fortunate to get well over $2 a kilo live in Alice Springs, $2.08 I think, and it was terrific. The average prices were really good. We averaged about $900 a head for our cattle.
And when it comes to quality assurance, Don Holt wants you to know the beef produced out here invariably outperforms cattle from what might be considered softer country.
We put cattle in a competition with a AMH at Dinmore in '94, and there were 1,000 herds tested, and I believe we came in the top 5% in that test, and there are other cattle in this district just as good as ours. They do very well. We've been selling Japanese Jap ox for 16 years here, every year, and fattened off grass. There are quite a few other properties that can do that. So quality's pretty good. Appreciative of the fact that quite a few stud breeders have come out here, and the Santa Society has brought them out and had a look at the property and looked at the cattle, so they can get an understanding of the type of country we have and the distances involved. It's pretty important. It makes them realise, I think, that cattle have got to be able to walk, and they'll be able to handle the hard times as well as the good times. It's pretty important.
Yes, I think if we could say that in Australia the Santa Gertrudis breed has been developed to, shall we say, a quality which you don't see basically in the States or anywhere else.
And I guess it must bring a certain sense of satisfaction to the association to know there are more Santas here than anywhere else.
Yeah, Australia is, there's big areas of Australia that are very similar to southwest Texas, and so that's just a home away from home for the breed.
Elenita, what would your dad have thought about today?
Oh, he would have been crying with happiness.
Whatever the need, whatever the challenge, Santa Gertrudis cattle, through careful selection and breeding, have been prepared to meet your requirements and promise to fulfill their obligation as America's beef breed for the future, for the world.